Hey guys, welcome back to askCamDoc. My name is Shane and I'm a final year medical student and neuroscience supervisor at the University of Cambridge. Today we're going to be talking about how Harvard completely changed my outlook. So if you guys have been following the last InfoPair series, you'd know that I spent the first part of my elective at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, which is Harvard's main teaching hospital. So I arrived at Mass Gen Hospital basically hoping that I could finesse this. And what I mean by that is that I was hoping that I could just do the bare minimum of work, get out as early as possible, go to the gym, and then just chill with the people who I was out there with. And I did that for the first couple of days, and obviously I didn't gain that much from it because I wasn't really concentrating when the consultant was talking and I wasn't really that bothered. But then I kind of stopped doing that in the second week, mainly because of how the consultant was. So a lot of the experiences I've had throughout medical school is either the consultant that you're with doesn't really acknowledge your existence or kind of ignores you, or occasionally would teach but mostly just pretends you don't exist. However, the consultant that I had when I was out there at Mass Gen was completely different. He was one of the busiest men that you could meet, but he still took out time to turn around, acknowledge me, teach me something before we moved on to the next patient. And he'd always include me in the consultations. So, as soon as we walked into the room, he'd be like, "This is Shane, he's a visiting medical student from Cambridge, whatever." And that little thing actually made me feel really included. The patient knew who I was, and things like that really made me stop and be like, okay, this guy's putting the effort in to teach me. I think I should afford him at least the courtesy to want to be here and learn what he has to say and what he has to talk about. So I did. So second week I went in very consistently and I went in very early. I was waking up at kind of 5 a.m. in the morning and I was getting in, making sure I was there by 6, 7, in time for clinic, in time for surgery. And it really paid off. This experience was incredible. I was seeing groundbreaking surgery and I was seeing techniques that you can't even begin to imagine because there's nowhere else in the world that does it. I think the technique that I ended up writing a paper on, Mass Gen was one of 5 centres that do it. And essentially all 5 centres were based around the US or in the US. So in the UK, this technique isn't even heard of or no one's actually doing it. And I was like, once I learned about how lucky I am to be at this place and how privileged I am in order to experience all these new techniques and see this fantastic new equipment, my mindset completely changed. It wasn't the case of, oh, I'm going in order to finesse this day so I can get a sign-off at the end of the week. I was going in because I genuinely wanted to learn, and I just felt so lucky that I was able to be there. And that was just a complete shift in my mindset. And that completely changed the way I looked at work. And a big part of this was, yes, the experience, but actually the consultant I was with, because he was one of the most passionate people you could ever meet. And he absolutely loved his job. And he was also one of the most hardworking people I've ever seen in my whole life. And just to put that into perspective, me and Subi, who I was out there on elective with, we landed on Saturday and Subi landed on Sunday, and we went in on Monday. And we were kind of complaining about, oh, we're a bit jet lagged, etc. The consultant turns around to us and says, oh, yeah, I understand. I literally just landed from Berlin. I just drove straight from the airport, and I've got a couple of surgeries and a clinic this morning. And we were like, damn, we're complaining because we landed either yesterday or the day before yesterday. But this guy has literally just arrived and he's raring and ready to go. And he was completely on it. When he was in clinic, he was fully alert. He was giving wonderful advice. He was examining patients thoroughly. He was literally on top of his game. And again, when he was doing his surgeries, he was fully on top of everything. And he was amazing. You know, I woke up the next morning, I texted him a question and I wasn't really expecting him to reply. He replies at kind of 5 a.m. and he's like, oh, yeah, kind of, Shane, yeah, I think that's a good idea. You should come in at whatever time, blah, blah. And then I replied to him being like, oh, you're up quite early. And he was like, yeah, I finished my last surgery at 11 p.m. and I go into work every morning at 5 a.m. And I was like, whoa, okay. So this guy works hard. And when I spoke to him about that, so, I went back and I was like, oh, you work quite hard. And then he just looked at me and said, yeah, didn't really think about it like that. I just really love my job. I really love waking up, coming into work and just doing surgery and talking to patients. And it was just so refreshing to hear that from someone who was just so passionate about their job. And at the very end of the elective as well, he sat me down and he was like, Shane, it's been a wonderful experience working with you, blah, blah. And he gave me the best bit of advice that I've heard from a doctor. And, it might seem common sense, but it was just a very penetrating point, which was, Shane, you need to find yourself a job that you're going to love coming into. Find a field that really excites you and that you're really passionate about. And if you do that, you'll never have to work again in the same way that you think you need to work. And what he meant by that was essentially, we think of work as like almost a negative thing, it's work and play. But what he was trying to say was change that mindset and make your work play. Essentially, if you do something that you really enjoy as a profession and as your work, you're not working, you are doing something that you really love. So essentially, you're doing what makes you happy, what you love, and it doesn't feel like a negative thing. So just to summarize then, I went out there with this mindset of work is something that I need to finesse and I need to finish quickly, and so that I could go off and do all the fun things that I want to be doing, like going to the gym, seeing my friends, chilling. But now the way I view work is that it's also something that I'm passionate about and that I enjoy, because it's something that I want to be doing. And it's important to find what work makes you feel like that. So for me, I really found my calling in kind of plastics and learning about certain reconstructive surgeries as well as surgeries that help post-amputation patients. And wasn't really that interested in the cosmetic side, but was really interested in the reconstructive side. And that was my calling. And it took me a while to find out and figure out why and what that was. But essentially what I'm trying to say is, if you find that field and if you find that thing that excites you and makes you feel really passionate, then you will never have to work again in the same way that you worked in the past. Essentially, you'll be doing what you love and doing what you're passionate about. So there's basically been just a kind of talk about how Harvard and my experience at Mass Gen Hospital completely changed my outlook. If any of you feel like you've had an elective experience that you found very inspiring or that's changed something about you, please do write to us and include like a 350 word summary of your story and why that's been so impactful to you, and let's get it out there. Let's make sure as many medical students hear about your story and hear about what kind of experiences that you had.